Breaking rocks, backflips, energy control, bending spears with your throat, one-finger push-ups, superhuman power. Incredible feats of strength and control, no doubt. But what about real combat? Is Shaolin Kung Fu good for fighting? I can't believe I've never made a video about this subject, since it's the #1 hate comment any Shaolin Kung Fu related video gets. It's just dancing. Try this on the street and see what happens. Buddy, the public is confused, so let's settle this.
This guy has serious hands.
Unbelievable! Unbelievable!
Kung Fu and wisdom together.
Between like your sexual organ and your anus.
Can Shaolin monks fight?
那是一定的。
To my dear fans, you can skip ahead 10 seconds, but in case this video reaches people that don't know me, I trained Shaolin Kung Fu for 3 years at the Shaolin Temple, yada yada, credentials. I trained under more than a dozen different masters, met practitioners from around the world, performed in the Shaolin Temple a few times, held some Shaolin Kung Fu seminars, and was deeply involved in that whole culture for a long time. I've thought about this issue a lot, and I want to make a fair and nuanced video. Also, please excuse my black eye. I got elbowed in the face yesterday doing sparring. Okay, unfortunately, and there's truly no way around it, any serious discussion about Shaolin Kung Fu and its usefulness for fighting has to start by defining our terms and some other pretext. I'm sorry, but I have to. Otherwise, it will fall on deaf ears no matter what I say. So, two things. What do I mean by Shaolin Kung Fu? And does it even have to be for fighting? I'll keep it brief. Pinky promise, Indiana Ehrenwort. When I say Shaolin Kung Fu, I'm referring to all the physical exercises that are practiced regularly at the actual Shaolin Temple in China. Not places that just call themselves that. This seems to be the most fair definition to me and the only one that I can work with reliably. If the warrior monks from the temple perform a show, they perform what they practice. This means Rangong, Qigong, weapons, acrobatics, and some other displays of strength and conditioning. I am excluding any one-off things, dodgy masters with unclear backgrounds, new hypes that pop up occasionally, or ancient techniques that you can find in old books that nobody practices. I'm sure your Shaolin Kung Fu school is super unique and actually trains everything in their MMA masters, but I can't and don't have to account for that. What Shaolin Kung Fu means exactly is subject to a lot of debates, but for the sake of this video, Shaolin Kung Fu are the skills practiced at Shaolin. Period. And I'm focusing on the physical ones. Secondly, this is one of the most common excuses, and I don't mean this disparagingly, to the people who say Shaolin Kung Fu is for inner peace, not for fighting. If so, the question can still be asked, and even the warrior monks disagree with you. And so does history, by the way. Without getting too deep into it, in my experience, when the cameras were on, it tends to be a spiritual practice, and when they're off, everyone wants to kick ass. That's why this clip here is so valuable. If it's a spiritual practice for you, fine. But not one warrior monk who trained with me has told me that face to face as the reason why he practices it himself. It's either fighting, self-defense, or just indifference. They practice it because they practice it. Money is also a common reason. Get good, open your own school, and maybe hopefully make it out of China. Okay, now that that's out of the way, let me answer the question of the video. Is Shaolin Kung Fu for fighting? Short answer, no. Long answer, yeah, kinda. It can. And niche surprise ending answer, spoiler alert, absolutely. As you can see, it's complicated because reality is complicated. Going in. Why is the short answer no? The short answer is oversimplified, but it shouldn't be a surprise to anyone really. It's the classic critique that you see most commonly and almost exclusively by people who are completely ignorant of Shaolin Kung Fu, but that doesn't mean it's wrong. It's just incomplete. Flips aren't going to help you fight. Neither are forms, animal styles, or Qigong. It's common sense, and everyone who practices it in good faith knows this. There is no pressure testing, there is no sparring. It's not like you could even pressure test or spar animal forms or Qigong. It would be like two drunks flailing at each other. Boxers that only practice techniques and drills but never spar are still much better prepared for a fight than people who do Shaolin Kung Fu. In this regard, I somewhat agree with the people who say it's a type of dance. It's complex choreographies that require speed, power, stamina, coordination, control, flexibility, and skill. They're aggressive, loud, and imposing, but not fights or fight simulations. The only way you can believe that is if you've never practiced a proper combat sport with people who are actually good. No amount of grunting and polo repetition will compensate for a lack of technique in boxing, wrestling, or ground fighting. End of story. Now, why then is the long answer, yeah, kinda? Well, look. Wow. Bear with me, please. We're going deep. The things I just mentioned, speed, power, stamina, coordination, control, flexibility, are these things important to a good fighter? Without a doubt, yes. Of course. Are you gonna have good footwork as a boxer with zero coordination? Is crazy flexibility gonna help your BJJ? The amount of endurance needed to perform a Shaolin Kung Fu form properly from start to finish, not the I practice to feel the vibe in the woods, is insane. It's like a cheetah chasing its prey for 10 seconds. It has to rest for hours after. And I was always good at resting. Shaolin stances are low and we jump high. My legs were never stronger than when I was there, and on the third repetition of a form with 100%, my legs would start shaking and not do what I tell them to. Bottom line, a good fighter needs to know how to move, and Shaolin Kung Fu does teach you that. That's why the warrior monks are so capable and talented when switching to other martial arts. Shaolin Kung Fu teaches you so many things. It gives your body all the tools it needs to adapt and learn a new style very quickly. No experienced Shaolin warrior monk is gonna feel weird or awkward in the first kickboxing class. They'll internalize it and apply their skills extremely quickly. So far, so simple. If we take another quick look at the dance comparison from before, although there are parallels, some things are clearly dissimilar. Every movement in a Shaolin form has a combat application or origin, whether that's striking, kicks, takedowns, or locks, in Chinese Qinna. Now, to be fair, most warrior monks do not give a shit about Qinna. Facts. I've seen monks who didn't know any Qinna pull applications out of their bum when teaching foreign students. And everyone still reacts with a, oh, like they're relieved that they can go home and tell their friends, you see, it's for fighting. So if we take those combat or self-defense application that again aren't practiced much, nor do they care about them a lot, which begs the question, should we even account for them? But whatever. Let's say these belong solidly in the realm of Shaolin Kung Fu. We have to go another step deeper. I'm sorry, I'm worried this video will get too complex, but I want it to be comprehensive. My apologies, sumimasen. We have now arrived at a paradox that is unsolvable between combat sports and martial arts. I find this dilemma super interesting. How do we know that a deadly or very dangerous technique works reliably in a fight or self-defense? It's near impossible to find out. Even though MMA is the purest and freest form of fighting, there are still tons of rules depending on the organization. Usually no eye gouging, no fish hooking, football kicks or stomps to the head of a grounded opponent, no ball squeezing, no headbutting, hair pulling, no scratching, no biting, and much more. Does it make sense that these things are banned? I'd say yes. No MMA fighter would want to engage in this if the risks of getting blinded, impotent, hepatitis or worse are that high. MMA restricts as little as possible, but as much as necessary to be able to train and compete sustainably. But for self-defense, meaning potentially life-threatening situations, everything is on the table, right? But you can't pressure test these things properly. One person wearing full body gear and the other going berserk is something, but it still isn't full-on pressure testing. Nobody will spar with you if they know you'll bite or try to scratch out their eyes. Why would they? This is not just an issue with Shaolin Kung Fu, of course. This is an issue with most martial arts that don't properly compete. Oh, we can't compete because we're deadly. I'm not allowed to fight because I would kill you. I like to make fun of that statement because it's usually BS, but there is a grain of truth to it. You have techniques that you cannot spar or pressure test. You can only slow drill them safely. It's totally cool that you know every application of every move in your Kung Fu form. Here I'm going for the eyes, then I'm gonna grab the throat, then I'm gonna kick the dick. But will that help you in a fight? I doubt it. In fact, if you have no real combat experience, I say impossible. Sucker punching drunks or unsuspecting victims doesn't count, okay? Before anyone goes out there and says, I smashed this homeless dude's head in with a Da Hong Chuan. Who said you can't use it for fighting? Practicing dangerous Kung Fu applications is low pressure and time intensive. Which leads me to this beautiful graph. The question, is martial art X good for fighting, is a question of efficiency. Time. And you can't mess with time. Let's say you practice 2 hours Shaolin Kung Fu every day. That's a lot. You do your forms, stretching, some cool jumps, maybe some weapons, and sometimes you manage to fit some Qinna and even striking. Another person practices 2 hours of boxing every day, some occasional wrestling and BJJ. Doesn't do forms, doesn't force himself into a split, doesn't practice a backflip. This person will be able to fight orders of magnitude quicker than the guy who practices Shaolin Kung Fu. Why are a lot of Kung Fu practitioners in China so good after 1 year only, whereas foreign students train for 10 years and aren't even close to that level? One of those reasons is because they train it every day for 6 to 8 hours. It takes a long time to get good at certain Shaolin skills. It's hard and it's fun. But if you spend that time with boxing, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, you'd be a killing machine. You have limited time. Spend it wisely, efficiently, goal-orientedly. Learn something that brings you to that goal quicker than other options. And no, it's not just marginally quicker, it's light speed compared to what Shaolin Kung Fu classes will bring you in terms of fighting within the same time frame. Okay, so if you've been listening to my ramblings and I asked you now, is Shaolin Kung Fu good for fighting? I hope you'd answer the same thing. Kinda, in a way, I guess, yeah, maybe. If so, I've done my job. And now the surprise. This is the alternative ending on the DVD. Found footage. Shaolin Kung Fu is 100% for fighting, if we include Sanda. I am myself very torn on whether or not to include it under the umbrella term Shaolin Kung Fu. I go back and forth on this and so do the people from the temple that I talk to. Sanda, for those of you who don't know, is Chinese kickboxing that even contains grappling. It's a full contact sport made for real fighting. It's practiced at the temple very irregularly though, and with varying levels of quality and commitment. Sometimes it's just, hey, put on this gear, beat on each other, see what happens. No joke. It happens often enough to where it can't be ignored, but it's just not part of the regular scheduled programming. In my 3 years, I had maybe 4 or 5 Sanda classes max. Every once in a while there's a master who is really good in Sanda and integrates it into the classes, but then after a week you return to the normal stuff, Ti-Tui, Jibengong, Taolu. If a Chinese person wants to learn Sanda, their go-to is definitely not the Shaolin Temple. At the risk of repeating what I've said in another video a few years back, whatever is practiced at the Shaolin Temple follows where money and interest is. Hence the huge shift towards acrobatics. That I don't have a problem with, for the record. Combat sports in China have to fight a little bit of an uphill battle, and depending on how much the government and the temple want to commit to the whole pacifist branding, they may never find solid footing in Shaolin Kung Fu, but remain the neglected stepchild. One last thing on this. I promise we're almost done. It is unavoidable to look at your own master or coach with rose-colored glasses. I think we all do it to some extent. It's not exclusive to Shaolin either. Although I do think it's slightly worse there because you have the whole spiritual guide, wise grandmaster, and esoteric mystification of Chinese culture laid on top. A master is usually surrounded by people who look up to them and are eager to learn Shaolin Kung Fu. The master might be strong, fit, fast, charming, confident, but has zero fighting experience or just bad striking technique. But because of the aforementioned attributes, he's still able to impress people with his punches and kicks, just because it's rare for people who do combat sports to transition to Kung Fu. It's usually the other way around. Ergo, many people practicing Kung Fu don't know how to recognize good striking or takedowns. And how could they? I don't mean this disrespectfully. This can lead to some very awkward moments. If your master says he's a Sanda master too, ask him to show you some of his fights. And if he does, are these back alley bum fights? How professional do they look? Record him, send it to a friend of yours who's an amateur boxer for their honest input. If he's showing takedowns, send it to a freestyle wrestler that you know. This is a tough point to make because there are amazing Sanda masters who also train some forms of acrobatics and who may have never competed. But in an age where scammers and fake McDojos are running wild, I personally recommend, if you want to learn how to fight, go to somebody who has a proven track record. Okay, I'm done. I did it. I covered it. You see, the problem with these videos is I try to make them as nuanced and fair as I possibly can. I go over the script so many times, try to look at this issue from every possible perspective, but ultimately I know there's one angle or point of view that I may have missed, and then someone points it out and says, my job is done here. Shaolin Kung Fu, #1 combat sport. Anyone who's been following me knows I have a lot of love for this martial art. I committed my life to it for 3 years, damn it. I appreciate it for what it is, and I find it super fascinating. It's constantly evolving too. Did you know that since 2017 they've been practicing archery at the Shaolin Temple? You could argue it's become part of Shaolin Kung Fu now. Hopefully this video doesn't come across as talking shit about Shaolin or being disrespectful to it or any one person. I just want to demystify. So, thank you to those who listened. Check out my first proper fights if you want to see if practicing Shaolin Kung Fu helped me. And in a few weeks, another Shaolin Kung Fu video will come out on my channel. Much more practical one. I'm actually going to do some Kung Fu or try. Stay tuned for that video. I'd appreciate it if you could like this video, share it, follow me on Instagram. I'm trying to get some sponsors, so please help a brother out. Ranton out.